Hello everyone and welcome back to the FPL Phillips YouTube channel and to another wildcard video, this time taking you through my favourite team ahead of Game Week 10, and it's going to look pretty drastically different to any of the previous wildcard drafts that we've seen on this channel in previous weeks. And I've gone a bit rogue with the team here, but I think it's kind of that point in FPL. I'm getting a bit sick of it. If I had the chip and if I could change my team entirely, there'd be a drastic rip up and I would go for something like this. So I'm very interested to see what you guys think of it. Make sure to leave a comment down below at the ends if you've seen the whole team. But without any further ado, let's get into things and kick things off with the goalkeeper as always. And it's not going to be David Raya. It's not even going to be a Mark Flecken. I'm going to go for Sells of Nottingham Forest. Now, this isn't the most optimal time to jump on the Nottingham Forest backline. They do have some tricky fixtures coming up. Namely, in 2 weeks, they play Arsenal, and then after that Ipswich game, 4 game weeks down the line, they have Manchester City as well. But one reason why I'm not too worried about that Manchester City fixture is that Fabianski is now a starting goalkeeper as well. So if you don't have him as your backup, then obviously if you still have a wild card and you're planning on using it anytime soon, he's the backup of choice to go for right now. He started against Manchester United. May seem that Areola's out of favour, and then obviously you've got the potential to start him in some weeks where maybe another cheaper goalkeeper like a Sells, like a Flecken, like Sanchez, whoever you end up going for, doesn't have the best of fixtures. When Nottingham Forest play Arsenal, it's not the best fixture, I'll be said, but I still think that Forest are that good of a defence that Sells is a pretty good option to go for, and he's definitely outperformed my expectations, and I think a lot of people's expectations and doubts that he had around him going into this season, and he's looked like a very capable pair of hands between the sticks for Forest, so he'd be my option to go for there. And that's partly because I didn't opt to go for a Nottingham Forest outfield defender. I've instead opted to go for a Wolves double up, which was something that I discussed last week when I actually talked about Ainouri, I talked about Semedo, and how his underlying numbers had looked very, very impressive as well. I've gone with both of them in this draft, not just with Ainouri, which I think would be the popular strategy for the majority of managers. So I've gone rogue with this one. They've got some great fixtures coming up. Crystal Palace and Southampton at home across the next 2, then Bournemouth at home in 4 weeks' time as well. It does just look very, very good. And Semedo's numbers over the last 3, 4, 5 game weeks have looked comparable in terms of XG and XA to some of the very, very best players defender-wise, up to the price of kind of like 5.5 million, where you have your Poros and people like that. So both of them, a bit of a rogue strategy. Of course, when you've got a difficult fixture for Wolves, it's going to look a bit sketchy, but they're only in here for attacking returns anyway. Clean sheets have been so hard to come by this season, and it feels like they're so random at times that, yeah, are focused on bringing in defenders that have good underlying attacking numbers for a very cheap price. The one defender that I would want to bring in that I am just missing out on, partly for a budget thing, is Vardiol. He would be the pick if I was to go for a Man City defender. However, their fixtures right now just aren't brilliant, and I back myself to build up enough transfers by the time those fixtures turn to maybe be able to bring him in and sacrifice one of the midfield options that you'll see later on. So Vardiol would be a one to kind of wait and see on. Same kind of thing with Rico Lewis, just the fixtures putting me off a little bit. And I like Robinson and Mikalenko as these 2 picks here. Both have decent underlying attacking numbers. Both play for teams that have kept clean sheets in the past. Fulham have looked like a very good defence, and he was in my wildcard draft video last week, Robinson, and did end up keeping a clean sheet in Game Week 9 just gone against Everton, in fact. So him or Anderson, both very good picks. Anderson is slightly cheaper at that 4.3 million mark if budget is an issue for you. But yeah, Robinson would be my pick of the 2 personally. And then Mikalenko just as that 4th defender backup option to come in when, you know, Robinson doesn't have the best of fixtures basically. Now I know that Tottenham and Manchester United fixtures that you can see 4 game weeks down the line do line up here. So you've got 2 tricky fixtures in the same week basically. So a little bit of a dilemma as to who to start. But to be honest, I think that the long-term fixture plan does work out better. So bear that in mind. You can always go for a different defender as that 4.3 million option, or, you know, around that price point where you have the 4th defender who's going to come in for tricky fixtures, and find a nice rotation pairing with Robinson or whoever you have as that 3rd defender pick. And then Van der Berg of Brentford. Looks like he might lose his place in the kind of medium to long term with Rico Henry returning, but he's a very, very injury prone player, so I'm backing him as the best 4.0 million defender right now. Could even start him in a few game weeks if he does manage to keep his spot, by the time that game week rolls around where Fulham play Tottenham and Everton play United, then you could actually start him, because I think Brentford do have a strong fixture that week. We'll check on that when we can move into the midfield, because obviously Brian Mbeumo is going to be in here. Yeah, in fact, it's Leicester who Brentford play, as you can see there on the right-hand side. So yeah, the midfield is where this team is stacked, and this is obviously assuming that Heung-min Son is back fit and available, and he would be the one that would be downgraded to a more budget-friendly option or mid-price midfield pick in order to fund that Vardiol upgrade if he's not fit for some reason for game week 10. But look how stacked this is. Salah, Palmer, Saka, Son, Mbeumo. This midfield 5 starting every week. You've got penalty takers in there. You've got the talisman in there. And just taking Haaland out can do a world of good for your midfield, and you can have all these guys in, not having to worry about using transfers in your midfield, keeping with these consistent players who deliver pretty much week in, week out on a consistent basis. The prices, I know they're expensive, but when you take out that 15+ million striker, you do actually have a lot of budget to play with. So yeah, really like these guys. It looks like a brilliant midfield on paper. Some of the cheaper options like Semenyo, Rodgers, who were performing a bit earlier on, are running into some tricky patches of fixtures as well, which I think makes this strategy even more appealing from my own personal point of view. But let me know what you guys think down below in the comments. And it obviously means that we are going to be sacrificing Erling Haaland up front, but I think, again, on the flip side, just where the budget midfielders are kind of maybe tailing off a little bit and not performing quite as well as we saw in earlier game weeks, I think the budget forwards, apart from Dominic Calvert-Lewin, of course, are coming into their own. And so we've got 3 of them coming in up front. It's going to be Chris Wood, it's going to be Cunha, and it's also going to be Visser. So you've got some benching dilemmas here. I would bench Visser this week, but you could easily, you've got a very capable option off the bench there, even if Saka gets another 1-week injury, even if Son's not fit. You've got a very capable 8th attacker on the bench, even in some tougher fixtures. So Chris Wood, scoring for fun at the moment, seems like he has to be in here, even though Forest, as said, they're hitting a little bit of a trickier patch. You've got Newcastle and Arsenal inside the next 4. Still full confident at owning him when he's in such fine finishing form. Cunha, again, coming in for the penalty taker at Wolves, does seem like the man to own. You could go with Strand Larsen here. You could also go with a Raul Jimenez here up front, who looks like a very good pick. And one final option that I would want to mention is Nicholas Jackson, who you could also bring in if you've got the budget to go with, or again, if you wanted to downgrade Son and fit in that extra player in midfield that you back at a cheaper price, like a Rodgers, like maybe even mid-price option at Spurs if you fancy Kulusevski or Brennan Johnson, someone like that. And then Visser would be the pick that I would most likely have in. Maybe he'd be the one that could go out for Raul Jimenez. You've got a lot of combinations that you could go for with, as mentioned, a lot of well-performing players right now in that mid-price budget line and selection of players to go for. So yeah, Visser, great return from injury. Mentioned him last week. If you saw that video with the table of the 4 forwards who all ended up returning, then I was pretty proud of that one. Give myself a little pat on the back. Unfortunately, don't take advice from me because I have owned Dominic Calvert-Lewin so far this season. So yeah, I give better advice than I take myself, if that makes sense. But yeah, Visser is one that I really like the look of. Brentford are scoring a lot of goals at the moment. No worries with the double up on their attack. And yeah, I'd even be a slightly bit apprehensive that he's going to get some decent returns down on the bench. But Fulham have been a decent defence so far this season, and so he does seem the obvious candidate to bench. But only really for game week 10. You've got games against Bournemouth at home, Leicester at home coming up, where you would most likely want to start him. So yeah, let me know what you guys think of this team down below in the comments. I'm a massive fan of it. I'm very frustrated that I've used my wildcard already, truth be told, and I can't switch to something like this. It's a big risk to take out Haaland. Obviously, if the robot goes and starts performing magic levels again, then you're going to have to shuffle some funds around and, do a lot of work and surgery to kind of bring the Norwegian back in. You very much have to kind of stick with the strategy if you do go for it. It might likely involve losing 2 of those premium midfielders in midfield. At the very least, you'd have to downgrade Son and then maybe even downgrade to a 4.5 forward. So yeah, bottom line, a lot of surgery to get Haaland back in. But if you're willing to commit to a no Haaland strategy, then this looks like a very cool, exciting play indeed that you're not going to see a lot of people going for. A lot of people will not be brave enough or just don't have enough transfers at the moment even to go for something like this. But yeah, I love it. Let me know if you guys do down below. Leave a thumbs up on the video if you did enjoy it. I really hope you did. And if you're new around here, then make sure to subscribe to the channel as well if you'd like to see any more content from me throughout the FPL season 24-25. And yeah, until next time, hopefully I'll see you in a future video. Goodbye.